Note to self, never let the brownies sing before you preach, because now you're not going to hear a word I say, are you, right? No, good job, girls. It's great that we get to lift one another up on days like today, especially as we celebrate these young ladies and the baptism we had earlier in the life. That's what church family does. As we come together today, like I said earlier, we're going to have this Love Is theme for all of the services, midweek and weekend, and all the way through. Because we've got to remember that it was love that led Jesus to the cross. That's the motivation that led him there. I really think that as Christians, we need to focus on love as well, because to be quite honest with you, we go home today and maybe you're going to take naps, you're going to go to lunch, you're going to do whatever, watch a little sports, it's March Madness and the like, or whatever's going on, and then we get up tomorrow and we turn the news on. Maybe we've got our news feed on our phone, and we begin to see just the opposite of love happening. We see hatred and outburst and impatience and everything else going on. And we need to be fed by God's Word when it comes to what it means to be a loving people, because God loves us. So love is. And obviously, what I want to do is kind of give you the outline of the services. Before I do that, I want to show you this one verse from 2 Corinthians 5. For Christ's love compels us, since we've reached this conclusion. If one died for all, then all died. And if he died for all, so that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for the one who died for them and was raised. Okay? So Christ's love compels us. It compels us to do what? Well, it compels us to reflect on God's love given us in Jesus Christ and live no longer for ourselves, but to live for Jesus. His love compels us to love others. If we're going to talk about what love is, we can look at the cross and we can see that love led Jesus to that place. But what about all those other characteristics or attributes to love and what have you? And we're going to draw those from 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Now, this text is read at 90% of the weddings that I officiate. It was read at our wedding almost 29 years ago now, right? And so let's just look at this. And the underlined words are words that we're highlighting in the series. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious. Now, I think it's interesting how Paul, when he wrote this, was led to go to the negative prose, right? And when I read it, I think it's kind of convicting because, like you say, in love is not envious. Well, sometimes I envy. Or it's not boastful or arrogant or rude. Well, sometimes I'm those things too. It does not insist on its own way. It's my way or the highway, that kind of a thing. So it can be kind of convicting, but it's not irritable or resentful. It doesn't rejoice in wrongdoing. In other words, it is forgiving. It rejoices in truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. There's a great amount of power in love. So today, we're going to focus on love is patient. All right? Love is patient. Now, I stand before you, and in all honesty, I will tell you, I am not the most patient person in the world, right? I don't know why I'm preaching this sermon because I can't exercise it that well, right? Patience is a hard thing, okay? If you know me, you know I love my pickup. I love my pickup. I like to go out and drive, what have you. But I come out of this parking lot, and if I'm going east on Schaumburg Road, right, the speed limit goes up to 45 miles an hour, okay? Now, if I'm in the left lane doing 45 miles an hour and you're in the left lane doing 40 miles an hour and I come to your bumper, get in the right lane, right? Okay? And it makes matters even worse. You're going, and people are going 35 miles an hour next to each other, blocking everything, and so your blood pressure's starting to go up a little bit, right? And then you get to the red light down there at Plum Grove, okay? We're going to go past Summit, we make it to Plum Grove, and you're behind the 35 mile an hour. So they're still blocking everything up, and the light turns green, right? All right, it's a good thing. And then one in the other lane goes, and you're like, okay, the one in front of me is not going, and you see this. how long do you wait before you give them that little courtesy honk, right? How long? And you know, in your own being, you're thinking, get a move on, but you give them the little boop, boop, you know, let's get going, wave, yeah, right. And the patience is out the window. We can find it anywhere. You know, we go to the grocery store. You go to the grocery store and you've got too many items to go in the self-serve line, so you're going to go and through the cashier and all the lines are backed up. But you see one way down at the end and their light's on and there's nobody there. And so you're like, awesome, I'm going to trick all these people, and you're moving on down the way. And when you get there, all of a sudden you see this short person that's too short to be seen behind all the candy bars and the gum and everything, right? And they've got a cart that's just piled full. And what is your emotion in that moment? Frustration, loss of patience, whatever. Oh, now I got to go find a shorter line somewhere else, you know? It's costing me time. And you know, I love my bride dearly. Gretchen is the love of my life. But every now and then, she will give me a box, and she'll say, honey, will you take this to the post office for me? It's like the kiss of death, right? I mean, it's like, oh, okay, it's just down the road. And then somebody said, yeah, but they got those little automated stations. 2 times ago, I kid you not, I went in there, I was going to use the little automated station to mail it, they were both broken, okay? So patience goes out the window. All right, Amazon Prime members, how many of you have Amazon Prime? Show me a show of hands. All right, a lot of us in this room have Amazon Prime. Now, one of the benefits, I'm going to kind of teach those of you that don't know about Amazon Prime, one of the benefits of having Amazon Prime is when you buy something and it is a Prime item, well, they're going to ship it to you in 2 days, so they say. And when it doesn't get there on that second day, frustration elevates, right, and all that. But here's another thing. I don't know if you've ever noticed it, those of you that are primers, but when you get to the shipping options, when you order something and it's a Prime item, a lot of times it'll say free. Yeah, right, I pay to be a Prime member. Free, 2 days shipping, right? And a line below it might say free. Ground shipping, 4 to 8 days. How many of you think, oh, I don't really need it that quick, so I'll just take ground shipping? It never happens, does it? Why do they even give us the option when we never elect it? I had somebody last night say they did it one time because they knew they were going out of town and they didn't want their package to arrive while they were gone. And lo and behold, what happened? The package arrived when they were gone and their neighbor had to come and get it. See, we're in a world that wants instant gratification. We want it and we want it now. I mean, that is just the case. And every marketing guru in the world plays on this need of instant gratification for us because we demand it. With computers, internet, cell phones, everything is right here, right now. Well, patience is better than power, King Solomon writes, and controlling one's temper than capturing a city. Patience is better than power. And isn't that true? Haven't you ever been around a person that's just so patient with you? We might call them a person of peace, right? And they have power over you just because you know they love you. And you do anything in the world for them. That's huge. So what I want to do is take you on a journey as we look at impatience exercise by King Saul and recognize that there is a cost associated when we're constantly impatient. We're going to see this play out with Saul. But first thing I could do is set a context for you, okay? Now, here we go. We have the people of God, the Hebrews, the nation of Israel. They have been in slavery in Egypt, and God rescues them. And so from the time Moses led them out of slavery until they entered the Promised Land, they lived under what's called a theocracy, okay? A theocracy is a nation or a grouping of people that are led by God. They didn't need a king or anything else, but because they had God leading them. But the people continued to ask God to give them a king. They wanted a visible person to lead them. So Samuel, the prophet, actually cautioned them against doing so. But finally, God relented and told them, fine, you can have a king. So Saul was anointed as the first king of Israel. Now, they no longer live under a theocracy. They live under a monarchy. And if you know anything about monarchies, you know that when that person dies, King Saul dies, the heir to the throne should be the next king. That would have been a young man, his son named Jonathan, okay? Well, if you know the full story, Jonathan never became king, and this is what our point is today, and it was all because of Saul's impatience, okay? So Samuel, after Saul is anointed king, he gives Saul a piece of instruction, and this is it. He simply tells Saul, go to Gilgal. I will come to you to offer burnt offerings and to sacrifice fellowship offerings. Wait 7 days until I come to you and show you what to do. What's the key word in there? Wait. Yeah, wait. All you got to do is wait, Saul. Well, Saul starts out pretty well. It says Saul chose 3,000 men from Israel for himself. 2,000 were with Saul at Michmash and in Bethel's hill country, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. And so basically they took their troops and they went to kind of two different areas, and I understand that there's a river and this ravine between them and the like. And so what happened was they followed the instruction, they went there, and all of a sudden Jonathan meets a garrison of Philistines, okay? And when he meets this garrison of Philistines, they enter battle, and Jonathan's crew wins, all right? Now, they win. So Saul got a little boastful, you might say. He ordered that the trumpets be sounded throughout all the land, and he boasted and said, Saul's army has killed a garrison of Philistines, and then he also said that the Israelites would be a stench in the nostrils of the Philistines, okay? Well, all he did was rub salt in a wound. That's what happened in that moment. Because the next thing you read is that the Philistines gathered to fight against Israel. 3,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and troops as numerous as the sand on the seashore. Now, some commentaries say 80,000, some say 100. Let's just say it's a bunch if they were as numerous as the sands on the seashore. So let's do a little comparison here, okay? They had 3,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and troops as numerous as the sands. How many did Israel have? 3,000. Split up. 2,000 with Saul and 1,000 with Jonathan. So to make matters worse, they were even kind of split up, okay? They rubbed salt in the wound. Well, it continues. The men of Israel saw they were in trouble because the troops were in a difficult situation. They hid in caves, thickets, among rocks, and in holes and cisterns. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul, however, was still at Gilgal, and all his troops were gripped with fear. Okay? Now, I can kind of get this, to be quite honest with you. Now, you might say, yeah, but they had God on their side, and this is true. But, I mean, just picture what's happening. First of all, what the Philistines did is they broke their troops into three groups, and if this was Saul and his army and Jonathan, they broke one group a little bit further to the north to try to draw them in, and then they flanked around them with the other two. So basically what happened was this. No matter where they turned, they saw the enemy, and they were greatly outnumbered, and they were scared. I mean, what would you do if you were Saul in this moment? Would you say, everybody chill out, God's got it all under control? Or would our human nature start to take us over as well, and we think, what are we going to do? I'm going to go hide too, you know? Well, here's what Saul did. He waited 7 days for the appointed time that Samuel had set. Started out well, but Samuel didn't come to Gilgal, and the troops were deserting him. So Saul said, "Bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings." Then he offered the burnt offering. He didn't wait. And in not waiting, well, he created a situation where he was going to lose. His impatience cost him something. It cost him something dearly. And the funny thing is, you would think that when he was approached about what he did, well, that he would confess, because Samuel comes. And well, he says, just as he finished offering the burnt offering, Samuel arrived. So Saul went out to greet him, and Samuel asked, "What have you done?" Now, you might expect that Saul would say, "You know what? I messed up. I'm so sorry, Samuel. I know you're the prophet of God, and you just speak the words of God to me, but I became impatient, and I'm sorry. And God, I'm sorry. Please forgive me." But instead, he made an excuse. "When I saw that the troops were deserting me, and you didn't come within the appointed days, and the Philistines were gathered at Michmash, I thought, the Philistines will now descend on me at Gilgal, and I haven't sought the Lord's favor. So I forced myself to offer the burnt offering." Right? He forced himself to. That kind of sounds like the woman made me do it, right? Isn't that true? Well, Samuel's had to say this. He said, "You've been foolish. You've not kept the command which the Lord your God gave you. It was at this time that the Lord would have permanently established your reign over Israel." So in other words, the consequence of his impatience was that when he died, the heir to his throne would not be the king. And if you know the full story, you know King David comes in, another lineage, and he is the one that sits on the throne. And he is not only King David, but Jesus Christ was born out of his line. Okay? And David is referred to as a man after God's own heart. Saul sought his own way, and David made mistakes too, but the difference between the two of them is David got on his knees and said, "God, please forgive me." It's amazing. Well, here we go. How many of you know what this thing is? What is that? It's a percolator, right? Sometimes we got to just let things percolate if you want good stuff to come out of it. It's a matter of patience, right? But my guess is that none of you here today still use a percolating coffee pot, right? We have a K-Cup machine in our house, a Keurig. I can have that coffee snap just like that, right? But if you think about what it means to let something percolate, and you compare it to this coffee, you know what? If you don't let it cook fully, you're impatient, you take it before it's done, you pour it in your coffee cup and you taste it, and all you have is brown water. There's nothing good about it, it's just hot brown water. But if you're patient with the process, good things come out of it. Is patience just letting things percolate? Sometimes it is. So I want to talk to you about some of the good things that come out of patience, okay? First of all, patience expresses quality, all right? If you're patient with the percolator, you're going to get a good cup of coffee. Saul, well, quality was lost in the offering that he gave. He rushed it. He did what he was not supposed to do. He stepped out of his appointed purpose and task, and in so doing, it was an offense to God. When we are impatient, we take the quality out of relationships so many times that exist. If all we would do is let things percolate and be patient with others. And you want to know something that's neat about this? Is God is patient with us. And in so doing, he's created the highest quality relationship we could ever imagine. We're not worthy to be called children of God. We're not worthy to stand before him. And yet, he restored our relationship with him to the fullest so that we might have the deepest, richest relationship with him that we could have through faith in his Son. Patience expresses trust. Now, I told you on this point, I kind of relate to Saul and those armies, because my goodness, look at this. This is scary. Can I trust in God? Okay? Yeah. Well, he failed. He failed. Yet, we know that God, in a very strange way, he trusts us. He's called us to be his children, and he's entrusted us with the ministry of the gospel to the world. For goodness sake, he trusts me to be a pastor of a church, and that's God at work, entrusting his people to be his hands and feet at work in the world. As a matter of fact, our mission here at St. Peter's, loving people and serving the world. And that is a mission that's entrusted to us as his children, okay? All right, patience then demonstrates love. And that love is expressed no more clearly than it is on the cross. When Jesus took that journey to the cross, it was out of God's love for us that he did so. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, right? Well, Saul, maybe he loved God, but he allowed the other feelings to stand in front of that love, and he expressed that in impatience, right? And what I discovered in preaching this is there's a relationship between patience and love. It's kind of cyclical because love is patient, and patience expresses love, and it's very cyclical. And God's love is poured out on us, and he just calls us to go out and share his love in the world. See, Romans 5:6 says, you see, at just the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. That's God's heart of love for us. But we're in a similar pickle that the Old Testament people were, because at just the right time, Jesus came. He was born into this world some 2,000 years ago, and he grew up, and he ministered, and he healed, and did miraculous works, ended up arrested, dying on a cross, and then rising from the tomb. All of that happened at an appointed time. The people of the Old Testament were patiently or impatiently waiting for that day to come. We still wait on this side of the resurrection because Jesus said he's coming again. And that's an act of patience, you might say, in this world that we live in. Like I said, we're all going to go back out those doors, and we're going to see what the world has to offer. But we know what God has to offer to us. His love, his patience. And he sends us to be out in the world, maybe letting some things percolate, being patient in the circumstances because he's given us a heart to love others. Remember, love is patient. Amen.